I imagine that right now you're feeling a bit like Alice. Tumbling down the rabbit hole?
You could say that.
I can see it in your eyes. You have the look of a man who accepts what he sees because he is expecting to wake up. Ironically, this is not far from the truth. Do you believe in fate, Neil?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't like the idea that I'm not in control of my life.
I know exactly what you mean. Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it. You felt it your entire life. That there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad. It is this feeling that has brought you to me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Matrix.
But the great majority of scientists feel that this is rather a waste of money and that it should not have the priority that has been allocated to it.
I would say that we have about a 50-50 chance, or maybe a little better, of beating the Russians to the lunar base and return with a manned shot.
I see no military advantage in putting a man on the moon. I'm told by good scientists that there's no real scientific advantage. It's purely a stunt. And I don't think it's worth $30 billion.
Marcus, okay. Sean Young, take one. Clear the laptop? Okay. We'll start today and work backwards. Can you tell us about your role today at NASA?
They've got me doing a lot of stuff that's associated with technical issues. I counted up the other day, I was working on 128 technical things and just little items. And the way you do technical stuff here now, you tell people about it, and pretty soon you tell them often enough they think they thought of it themselves. That's where you get it done.
Going back even a little further before Gemini or during, did you have a sense of what the Russians were up to? Did you get any briefings, or was it mostly sort of word of mouth? I know we've talked to General Stafford about it and so on.
Yeah, the only thing I knew about it was that somebody said the Russians were doing a big rocket, and I hadn't heard such a thing. And then when we had the Russians over here, they came over and visited, and they were not interested in our rendezvous and dockings. They were doing a simulator. They were interested only in the ejection seat pictures, the ejection seat stuff out of the lunar landing training vehicle. So I knew in my heart that they must be going to the moon, because who would want to watch something as dumb as that unless they're really serious, you know? And that's what they were interested in.
Oh. What year was that about? When did they come over?
It was right doing Apollo 7, which I don't remember when that was, 1968 or some time frame in there, 67 or 68. We showed General Barry Gavoy, who was head of Star City, around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about that? I didn't know that we had invited them over in '68.
I don't remember, and I don't remember why they came. We're just always being nice to folks. Yeah.
Even the Russians at that time.
Sure.
Well, Kennedy was a little more interested in kind of a joint program, wasn't he? I think, and that's something Johnson might have been pushing.
I don't know. Be honest with you, that's way beyond my pay grade in those days. I've just trained for the missions.
Following his return from the moon, Armstrong, alongside his Apollo 11 crewmates Michael Collins and Edwin E. Buzz Aldrin, embarked on a presidential goodwill tour. For 38 days, they traveled the world, visiting 22 countries, spreading goodwill and sharing their extraordinary experiences. Armstrong had made it clear that he had no plans to return to space. True to his word, on May 18, 1970, he was appointed as the Deputy Associate Administrator for Aeronautics by the NASA Administrator Thomas O. Paine. Armstrong held this position in Washington, D.C. for about a year before retiring from the agency. Between May 24th and June 5th, 1970, Armstrong visited the Soviet Union, a country not included in the Goodwill Tour. at the invitation of the USSR Academy of Sciences. His visit was primarily to give a talk at a conference in Leningrad, now known as St. Petersburg. But he also traveled to Novosibirsk in western Siberia and Moscow. This marked another significant step in the slowly warming relationship between the two space superpowers, a relationship which would eventually lead to the Apollo-Soyuz test project joint docking mission in July 1975. Upon landing at Leningrad's Pulkovo Airport, Armstrong became only the second American astronaut to set foot on Soviet territory. He was warmly welcomed by Soviet cosmonauts Georgy T. Beregovoy and Konstantin P. Feoktistov, who served as Armstrong's hosts throughout his trip. Armstrong spent 5 days in Leningrad, attending the 13th annual conference of the International Committee on Space Research. Here, he delivered a talk titled Lunar Surface Exploration to an enthusiastic audience of more than 1,200 delegates from 30 countries. 3 days later, he narrated films of the Apollo 11 and 12 missions in the grandeur of the Tauride Palace, once the seat of Russia's parliament. During his stay, Armstrong visited some of Leningrad's most historic sites, including the Piskarevskoy Memorial Cemetery, the Hermitage Museum, the cruiser Aurora, the Naval History Museum, and the Peterhof Palace. In summary, Armstrong's post-moon landing activities were a mix of diplomacy, administration, and continued exploration. From his goodwill tour around the world to his significant visit to the Soviet Union and his administrative role at NASA, Neil Armstrong remained an active and influential figure even after his legendary lunar landing. The first American from NASA to visit Russia was actually Wernher von Braun, the German-American aerospace engineer and space architect who played a crucial role in the development of the United States space program, including the Apollo missions to the moon. Von Braun visited Russia in 1959 as part of an exchange program between American and Soviet scientists. This visit occurred during a period of intense competition between the United States and the Soviet Union in space exploration known as the space race. Von Braun's visit aimed to facilitate scientific exchange and communication between the two countries, despite their geopolitical tensions.
It's purely a stunt, and I don't think it's worth $30 billion.
With $30 billion, he reported, we could build and endow more than 50 large universities, give $10 million each to 200 of our best colleges, finance 50,000 seven-year fellowships, create 10 new medical schools, and give a 10% salary raise over a 10-year period to every teacher in the United States. The final cost of Project Apollo will be enormous.